Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for inviting us. I'm very recently associate professor, so I still have to get used to it. I used to be Dr. Daniela Gashago. As I was introduced, I'm originally from Austria, but I've moved to South Africa in 2010, and I work for the Peninsula University of Technology. I don't know if you know a little bit about the university. We are a big university. I look at you and I'm thinking you're so lucky. Beautiful venues, fewer students, it's all really nice and manageable. Us, we have I think over 35,000 students. We have been merged, we have more than 10 campuses, so you can just imagine the logistical nightmare of having to drive between those campuses. So it's not an easy place to work, but it's also quite an exciting place because we are the largest university. We are also the one with the lowest fees, so we get really students who come from more poorer environments than, say, the student who would traditionally go to UCT or Stellenbosch or even UWC. So our students come with a lot of issues to class. So it's not an easy space to teach, but it is also a very rewarding space to teach because the students challenge us. I mean, they come with ideas, and I mean, I'm sure you've heard the student fees must fall. We were one of the most impacted institutions in South Africa. We have gone through it 3 times. We were closed off 3 times. But it has created very interesting spaces for debate, for discussions, and for blended learning. It was a really special moment because suddenly, with all the campus closures, everybody was like, oh, please help me put my classes online. What can I do? How can I continue teaching? How can I do online assessment? And in many ways it went wrongly because if somebody hadn't prepared beforehand, if they hadn't prepared their students beforehand, they failed. But a lot of lecturers also saw it as a real interesting way of thinking about using technology more in teaching and learning. So for us in the Center for Innovative Educational Technology, it's been really interesting times over the last few years. So what I'm going to talk about today is our stories. So I'm quite glad I'm the second one, so I don't have to do much pedagogy and theory. I'll tell you stories about what our colleagues have been doing over the years, what has been working, why they did certain things they did, to give you a bit of context of the various levels of blended learning that you can think of. So where can you start from? What are easy steps, and what would it look like if you went further? But before I even start, you've had to listen for quite a bit now. I want you to tell us what you are using here at Plaatjies. And as we have heard, blended can be anything. It can be using your cell phone to set up WhatsApp group with your students. It can be using Facebook to share links with your students. It could be anything. So I want you're sitting, all of you have laptops in front of you. I'm sure you have a smartphone. Try to go to this link, paulf.com/dgashago, and see what you find there. You should get a page that looks like this, and you can just type in your response. See if that works for you. Yeah, can you see the URL? paulf.com/dgashago. Can you see that? Yeah, so you should see something like that, and if you submit, it should come up here. It's right here, paulf.com/dgashago. Is it too small? Let me make it bigger. Can you read this? Yeah? Has anybody managed to get there? Yeah? Are you posting? YouTube, H5P, well done. But I want you to tell me also for what you're using it. Not just the tool, but tell me why you're using it. So I use WhatsApp to communicate with my students. Are you getting there? Oh, more is coming. Moodle for marking, okay. Notes, YouTube. What do you use it for? Give me more like a sentence. So at least tell me YouTube to share content. Another one, Moodle, okay. Lots of notes, okay, I guess, on Moodle. Lots of people who use H5P, I'm impressed. And more stuff is coming up. marking, concepts, online tests, explaining stuff on YouTube. I can show you a different way of showing. This is a word cloud. So what it does, it picks all your comments, and if 2 people say Moodle, Moodle becomes bigger. Yeah, so this is a way of showing what do people use most. But I can also show it in a way that allows you to see everything that comes. Have you all posted? Yeah? Not yet? Okay, but can you see how a picture is emerging? Clearly a lot of you use Moodle. Yeah? Moodle is at the center of everything you do. And you use it mainly for notes, announcements, but also a lot of you use YouTube. Yeah? So in a few minutes, I can already get some information from the audience. That's one way of using technology in a classroom.
Where do you see the number of responses?
So it doesn't necessarily tell you. There's another way of setting up where it just shows each individual response.
Okay.
But this way, it just collects, and if 5 people said Moodle, it makes Moodle bigger. Exactly, that's what you call a word cloud. So I can immediately see across this room, Moodle and YouTube are the primary technologies that you use. Yeah, at a glance. Yeah, this thing is called Poll Everywhere. It's free. It's really easy to set up. It's a very nice tool. Different ways of asking questions. Very nice tool to use in class, especially if you've got Wi-Fi. Are you all done with inputting your data? Yeah, thank you. So we've already heard a little bit why to use blended learning, but I think it's really important to see the bigger picture. For us, at least at CPUT, there are quite a lot of external forces pushing us to use more flexible or blended learning. And one of that is that our student profile is changing. So we are in the process of offering, I think, 20 new PGDIP programs from 2020. Universities of Technologies had to recurriculate. All our Bachelor of Technology, Master of Technology had to become new programs. And by 2020, we are offering 20 new programs on postgraduate diploma level. So that's quite highly advanced already. That's after people have done the diploma, higher diploma, certificate, and then postgraduate diploma. These people will all be employed, all of them. It is not expected that anybody is going to do a PGDIP that is not working full-time, or at least part-time. So these students will not be able to sit in class the way we are used to have students sit in class during the day. So there's an amount of flexibility needed for these students that our current teaching is not being able to provide. So there's a huge push from that side. There's also a white paper by the Higher Education and Training Department that clearly says every institution in South Africa has to think about widening access. So it's not just distance education providers such as UNISA who are going to have to offer distance education or think about offering distance education, but institutions like CPUT as well, who are predominantly campus-based institutions. We have just accredited our first proper distance education national diploma in real estate. First time ever at CPUT. Now those kind of programs have to be run differently than our face-to-face teaching. Even our campus-based students are not as flexible as they used to be. I think there are studies that show up to 75% of our students are in either part or full-time employment. So that idea that our students can come at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 is not working anymore for many of them. Our students have huge transport issues. Yesterday was, I don't know if you heard on the radio, there was Cape Town shut down. For 3 hours, all the major roads into town were blocked. That means our students do not come to campus. the whole day. So what do? Do you just miss class? Have you just missed out? How can we help students who are struggling to come to class on time, who have different responsibilities they have families, they have jobs, they have things they have to look after beyond studying. That traditional student that comes to class and that's all he has to care about doesn't exist anymore, at least not at CPUT. I don't know about your students, those students do not exist anymore in our reality. So there's something that we need to consider when we think about our students of today. And it's only becoming going to be more of those kind of students. Our students have to be digitally literate. They have to know how to navigate the digital world. Not just the LMS, but beyond the LMS. They have to start thinking like lifelong learners. They have to start thinking, how do they market themselves? How do they set up e-portfolios? What is their digital footprint out there? And they have to learn that during their studies. And as we heard, it has to be scaffolded. You have to take them slowly through safe environments such as the LMS, which is protected and safe, but also to help them move out of the LMS into having a blog, sharing their thoughts, creating content out there, creating or developing their voice out there, being able to participate in this digital world. There's also, at least at CPUT, within the decolonization debate, there's a lot of talk around who is the one who should decide what is part of the curriculum, who is the one who holds all the knowledge, who creates knowledge. Is it just us? Or should we not think about co-creating knowledge with our students? There's a lot of knowledge within our students. How do we help them share that knowledge, create knowledge themselves? And how can technology help that? Can we afford not to? I mean, that is a big question. I mean, there's a lot of competition out there. If students can choose to do an online degree with MIT or a campus-based degree with CPUT, why would they have to come to CPUT? So there's a lot of competition out there that is attracting our students. And it's becoming cheaper, it's becoming more accessible, people have more access to the internet and data. Those things are serious threats, especially if we keep being shut down year after year after year. So there's a lot of conversations that we are having, at least at our institution, about what is the future of education. We are running out of classroom space. Those 20 new postgraduate diploma, we don't know where we are going to house them. We already don't have enough space. Where are 20 diplomas being, 20 new programs? Where will they sit? So there are a lot of practical implications as well, or considerations of why we should move towards a more flexible space. So I think what's really interesting is that the boundaries are blurring. You know, we spoke this morning and we heard that UNISA is starting to offer more and more face-to-face support. So traditional distance education institutions are moving more towards the center, while campus-based institutions are moving more towards distance learning. So at one point, we'll all meet up somewhere in the middle on this continuum. And that's the future. So this is a really nice, if you're interested in this field, there's a really nice guide by the Council of Higher Education on flexible learning. And they've created this diagram which shows that, you know, we're not jumping from one place to the next. It's a slow progress from a more offline campus-based space into an online remote space. And we are all somewhere in this continuum. The importance is that we know where we want to go. So we need to know where we are placed today and what is it that we actually want to achieve in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years' time. Why do we want to achieve this? And how do we get there? So it's those conversations that are important to have. So if I speak to a CPUT lecturer, the first thing they'll ask, what's in there for me? Why should I go this way? You know me, I'm used to teach in a certain way. It works for me. Why? Why should I do something else? And a lot of them as we have heard, for a lot of them they just provide content on the learning management system. So rather than having to print out handouts, that's already a huge improvement for them. You know, they don't have to provide handouts, they don't have to print whatever many handouts every week. They just post it on the learning management system, and they say, students, here, access is given. It's all there. But I think for a lot of them, it's also, technology is also helping that engagement in and beyond the classroom. I'll show you one story where a lecturer seriously struggled with students sitting and not talking. Just like you. You're sitting there, you're looking at me, but nobody's engaging, nobody's asking questions. I could ask a question, nobody will answer. We know that. Our students are shy. English is a problem. We have second, third, fourth, 10th language speakers. They don't just stand up and talk. So using technology such as the poll everywhere to get a feeling of where the class is and what they think without them having to stand up and speak in front of the class is already a really nice tool. But also beyond the classroom, a WhatsApp group is such a, how many of you use WhatsApp? Quite a few. For teaching with your students, do you have groups with your students? It's a fantastic tool. Again, that was something that exploded during the Fees Must Fall because that was the only way to communicate with your students. It was the quickest, most immediate. Classes were constantly cancelled, changed, moved. You needed a quick way, and it's on students' phones. They receive it, it's cheap. It uses very little data, as you know. So people have started using it more extensively also beyond the protest. They share videos. Those videos that you create, they record themselves in class, they create a podcast, they share it on the WhatsApp group. And students have the recorded lecture to listen over and over and over again, especially if we have heard when you talk about difficult concepts that people struggle to grasp at once. Digital literacies, when you ask students to create PowerPoint presentation, to create a video, to create a portfolio, an e-portfolio, to write a blog, those are all digital literacies they will need for the workplace later on in life. So those are skills that you embed in your teaching and transfer to your students. Course management. If you have large classes, having a learning management system that allows you to collect assignments, to mark tests, multiple choice tests. You know, you don't sit there with paper tests and tick, 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 tick. The computer does that for you. So there's a lot of things that you can use that actually make your life easier. What we have started is student tracking to identify at-risk students. So if students do not submit assignments on time, if students do not do the self-tests over a while, if students have not accessed the learning management system after a while, they get an email saying, hi, what's wrong? What's going on? Do you need help? Come talk to me. And that's something that the learning management system can help you do. And different learning styles, we have heard that already. But for me, there's also something else, and that's where I find the really interesting bit, the more creative stuff comes through. And that is to allow you to use more different ways of learning, to do something that actually could not be done without technology. That's for me always the challenging part, to find those instances where technology allows you to do something that you could not do before. And that is what we sit, or where we come in as instructional designers or educational technologists, to sit with lecturers and to think, what is the challenge you want to solve? What is your student like? What would they like? What would they accept? How far can you push them? What can you do with technology that you couldn't do before? And what I like in terms of unpacking that is Jan Harrington's 6 ways of learning. And I think it really helps because people still think that technology or blended learning is putting your content online. And that's purely acquisition. That is only acquisition. Jan Harrington would say that is one way of learning. But there are 6 ways of learning. And every good teacher, all good learning, should in some way comprise the 6 ways of learning. And that is collaboration, discussion, investigation, practice, and production. There's a short video where she explains it in 2 minutes. It's a really nice video. And For me, it makes a lot of sense. And once you start thinking about that, then you become creative. When you use technology for more than just dumping your content on the Blackboard or on Moodle. And there are millions, literally millions of apps and tools that can help you in all of these 6 ways of learning. And it's an experimenting. It takes a little bit of time, like we spoke about screencasts. Camtasia is one software. Unfortunately, Camtasia, I think, costs money. But there is a list of free screencasting softwares that can do the same thing. You can use Electa Live, you can use, I think the other one is called Screenomatic. There's a range of technologies that will help you address all 6 of these ways of learning. And so then you move away from thinking about how to push content to your students to say, well, the perfect blend must be more. It will be content. Sure, our teaching is very content-centered, but it will also involve activities. How can you use technology to support activities and then also assessment? So you have a constructive alignment between what you teach, how you teach it, and how you assess it. Does this make sense? Are you all with me still? Okay. So let me just now go into our stories. And this is really stories of moving from a very, very traditional way of learning to some of the stories I'll tell you will be like the fully online real estate diploma, yeah? Which sits right at that other corner. But that's one course in the whole university. So most of us are more in that left corner, moving slightly towards the right corner. So one of the lecturers who came to me and said recently, and actually said, look, I'm teaching these huge classes, 200 students. They sit, and it's in the afternoon. It's an education lecture, but he teaches ICT in education. So he says, they come to me in the afternoon, they are tired, they're exhausted. They've been awake maybe since 4 o'clock in the morning. At 2 in the afternoon, they cannot focus anymore. I'm surprised you're not falling asleep. It's also 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But they sit there, and there are many. And he says, for him, it's impossible to understand if whatever he teaches reaches his students. And he's not South African. So he says, I don't speak any South African language. I really struggle to engage with my students. So then we sat and we thought, what can we do? And he said, I've got Wi-Fi in the classroom. So his design challenge is, how can we increase student engagement in large classes? What would you do with a problem like that? 200 first-year education students exhausted, sitting there, and you just feel you're talking way over their head, and you don't know what's happening. What would you do?
Smaller groups.
And then?
Different activities and then rotate them.
Okay, cool. So small group work, very nice. What else? But how would you know whether they understood what you just taught them? What do you do in class? How do you get a feeling of where your class is? Did they understand what you just spoke about? How do you get a feel? What do you do?
Normally you ask them questions and they understand, but there are different ways now. I think we spoke about the clickers that you can use.
Clickers, yes.
And what else? The same stuff that you use.
Yeah, Paul everywhere, sure.
Yeah, they understand and then
Okay, let me show what he used. And I'm going to ask you to do it yourself. You've got your laptops there. I'm going to start. No internet, let me just. In the meantime, you can log on to a website that's called kahoot.it. Not create Kahoot, you must go to kahoot.it. And you can work in pairs. I want at least 2 of you working together. Otherwise, we are too many. 2 or 3 of you. Form pairs and go to kahoot.it and going to make it work. You have to put in this pin. Yeah, you go to kahoot.it and you put in this pin and you give your team a name and you join. So far I have no players yet. Please sign in teams. This is a competition, so you have to sign, you have to be teams of 2 or 3 and give yourself a name. Come guys, quick, wake up. We don't have that much time. Okay, cool. No nicknames to wear. Okay, you're out of the game. Huh? 2 players, fantastic. 3 players, well done. Come, I need more. 3 players. I want at least 5 groups. Come guys, 5, 6 players. Okay. Who is not in yet? The pin is this one, 755393. Are you in? Okay, we have 8 players. That's enough. Let's start. This is about online assessment. Let's see what you know about it. Blended assessment. Okay, guys. And it's quick, huh? By blended. What do we mean? You've just heard. What is blended learning? Students with diverse learning needs, face-to-face and online learning, digital and paper-based resources, formal and informal learning. Which color? You have to choose one. Guys, you have 5 seconds left. 4 seconds. Choose one. Quick, quick, quick. Well done. 3 of you. Got it right. Shall we see who won? Score. Who is score? Well done. So the thing is, it counts not just who is right, it also counts time. Yeah? So you were the first one who got it right. Next. You know Bloom's taxonomy? You're all educators. What's on top? Creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying. What's on right on top of Bloom's taxonomy? Huh, guys? 12 seconds left. Come. 8 seconds left. Choose. Oh, sorry. Teacher! Whoa, but now we didn't see what was the right answer. Who knows what the right answer was? What? Creating. Well done. Next, let's quick. What do we do when we align? What do we align when we talk about constructive alignment? Needs resources assessment, needs contents resources, objective contents assessment, needs objective assessments. Constructive alignment. Can you remember that? Okay, guys. 3 got it right. Well done. It's objectives, contents, assessment. Yeah? Yeah, they fall out. Okay, our B is now at the lead. Well done. So, do you think summative assessment can only be done on campus? Correct or false? I don't know. You tell me. You all got it right. Well done. And our B is at the top. Another one. Question that require mathematical problem solving cannot be done online. What do you think? You're too clever. Well done. Everybody got it right. And LB is still in the lead. Okay, this is unfair. How is CPUT's plagiarism tool called? I will help you. It's called Safer Sign. Yeah, do you know what a plagiarism tool is? Do you use it? Turnitin. Yeah, so it's very similar to Turnitin. Fantastic. And who won? Abi! This took us how long? This took us, what, 5 minutes? Within 5 minutes you woke up, you have thought deeply, you have collaborated, there's peer learning in there, because you have to convince each other about the right answer. There is so much that happened, and as a lecturer, within 5 minutes I know if what we have learned, what I presented upon, did reach my students or not. And you can use this for revision, you can use this at the beginning of a lecture, at the end of a lecture. It's a very quick icebreaker to wake up people. That's all that it is.
Okay, so you just need to design.
Yeah, but there are millions of existing quizzes already. You just go and scroll through the existing quizzes in your field and adapt them. It's a really, really nice tool and it's free. All you need is Wi-Fi.
It's Kahoot.
Kahoot. Nice tool. All of this is in-class engagement. And I know I'm way beyond my time. How much time do I have? Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, so that was one design challenge. So this lecture, and it worked very, very well for him. 200 students, he used Kahoot, and in terms of the 8 ways of learning, he used technology for both discussion and collaboration. Clickers is very similar. What you can do with clickers, what I love, is also, does everybody know what clickers are? Yeah? There's something out that is called plickers. I wanted to bring them, but I didn't find them in my office. I'm really sorry. But clickers are lovely. They're paper-based clickers. So you don't need those clickers because they're expensive. All you need is a cell phone with the app. And the plickers look like, I'll show you how they look like. They look like QR codes. Do you know what QR codes are? It's lovely, easy, simple tools to bring. It looks like this. Can you see this? So you hand them out to students, and each of them looks differently. Yeah? And then you ask a question with 4 options, and they have to move it, turn it around to option 1, 2, 3, or 4. Yeah? Does it make sense? This piece of paper has A, B, C, D, E, and you just move it to whatever option you want to choose. And then you scan with your cell phone, and within seconds, it scans all the answers and shows them on the screen. So that is a paperless clicker. And it's lovely to bring engagement into class. And what's beautiful about this is, if you see, you ask a question, and the class is undecided. They're all, maybe 50% says A, 50% says B. You don't give them the right answer. You tell them to discuss with their peers. And those 2 minutes of talking to their peers, if you poll the same question again, the result will have changed. And more often than not, to the right answer. Not always. Sometimes the one that got it right managed to convince the people who got it wrong, who got it right. But most of the time, then actually those 2-3 minutes of discussing among themselves will get them to the right answer. So again, there are really easy ways of using technology in your classroom. Plickers is lovely, and it costs nothing. You print out these things, we laminate them so they hold up nicely, and you have to install this app on your phone, which is free. And you just scan. Lovely. So if there, poll everywhere you have seen working before. So let me continue. Next story. This is BRONWYN SWARTZ, who teaches statistics in the engineering faculty. And she's one of our e-learning pilots. She has always been working with us. She was part of our open educational resource project. So she already created these screencasts. A little bit. She started. Yeah, screencast is what we have seen, what Camtasia does. It records all your screen, what I'm doing right now. It records the screen and the voice. So you have like a little video at the end that students can watch. So then, and her class, it's 4th year students. So they are all technologically savvy, I would say. Yeah, and they all have technology and access to data. A lot of them are already working. So they are in a good position to use technology. So when the fees must fall happened, she sat down and she said, am I going to stop like everybody else? But the year is nearly over. These are 4th year students. It's one project that they have to do. I don't want them to have to repeat, or, we never knew. 2015, we never knew whether we would actually be able to finish the year or not. So she said, no, what she's actually going to do. So her design challenge was, how can we use technology to continue teaching when the campuses are closed? She had already established a WhatsApp group with her students, which was extremely important. Because now through that WhatsApp group, she now asked them, are you okay to continue teaching and learning beyond the classroom? And they all said yes. And then what she did is just to continue doing these screencasts. So she basically did her whole lecture on a screencast, send it to her students. They use discussion forums on Blackboard extensively to discuss the content taught. She played around with where to share those screencasts. Could they be shared on Blackboard? But that was difficult then for the students to download it. Eventually, she all shared them on YouTube, because YouTube is the best platform to optimize video for different data access. She used Google Drive for the students to develop their project. And for her, do you know Google Drive? It's lovely. For collaborative writing, what her students did, they started developing, they have to do a research proposal in statistics using quantitative data analysis. So they started developing their research proposal alongside watching her screencasts, and she commented on the actual document that they shared with her on Google Docs. And so on the document, they actually started discussing and commenting and giving feedback and improving the proposal. Yeah, so that was her toolkit for that specific design problem. But so she developed this she has a whole YouTube channel now with these videos. So what she decided is that they have worked so well while the students were gone, she actually uses them as resource materials in her class. So what she does, she uses the flipped classroom methodology. I don't know if you've heard about that. So the idea of a flipped classroom is that you move the lecturing outside the classroom. So this screencast, students can watch anywhere, at any time. And they do that before they come to class. And then in class, you can use the time for discussion, problem solving, teamwork, all the activity, what usually is the homework, the application of what you learn. So you move the homework into the classroom and the lecturing outside the classroom. And it worked really well for her. But she has fourth year mature students who will actually do the work. So with first year students, you'll struggle to get them to listen to those YouTube videos. So again, you have to think about your students and what they will engage with and find useful and meaningful for them. And now she has gone even a step further, because she said, why should she be the one to create these screencasts? And what she's doing now is she's asking her students to create these screencasts and share that with the rest of the class. So this is, I think, just to show you how step by step you can go further, but you have to start somewhere. And then whatever works for you, you take further, and whatever doesn't work for you, you move on, and you find the next technology. But you always start with a challenge. You always start with, what is it that you actually need to address? What is the problem that you're sitting with? And who are your students? And how can you enrich the way you teach? So it's not just you telling people, lecturing, but students actually participating. This is our own short course on blended learning design, which we started offering last year. And what we try to do with that course, we have a huge problem that we have these lecturers who come regularly, faithfully to all our workshops, but they actually struggle to implement. There's something that holds them back. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's just that step too much. So we needed something to collect all these people who have done all these workshops with us. They've gone through all the Blackboard trainings. They come to our talks and seminars and workshops. And just to have time with them and sit with them and actually take them through implementing something. So we wanted to create something that's playful, that allows them to experiment, but also gives them the kind of support they need. So it's both pressure to do things quickly, but in a supported, safe environment. Does that make sense? So we offered something, so this is our Jane, this is the kind of persona we were designing for, which is that very faithful lecturer who comes very regularly. You see her all the time, you know her. But she just doesn't manage to transfer what she hears to the classroom. So our design challenge is, how can we use technology to encourage more lecturers to innovate their teaching? And we designed a course, last year it was 10 weeks, this year it was 5 weeks because people said it's too long. And it's a mix of workshops where we work intensely on design activities and webinars where we do more like, not theoretical, but more the conceptual stuff. Yeah? So 1 hour lectures online through webinars that are being recorded, so those who can't attend, they can listen to it later on. But in the workshop, it's very hands-on. And we push them. Every week they have to do something. So in week 1, they have to do a Flipgrid. And that Flipgrid is another really, really nice tool. I love it. It's like a discussion forum, but it's videos. And our students love it because they all have a smartphone. And they are the selfie generation, so they love recording themselves. So it's 90 seconds videos. And you can pose a question. We did it as introduction. So this is one of our participants who is introducing herself.
At the Department of Research, Innovation and Partnerships, and I am also a colleague of Raina. We hope to be developing.
Yeah, so you get and it's easy. It's just you give them a code. They don't have to register. They either download the app or they do it online via the web, and they just record themselves 90 seconds talking. And you see where they are. You get a little bit of where they live. You get a little bit of the personal environments, you get to know each other, and it's amazing what the engagement level is. So these are all the videos of all our participants, and some have been, I don't know, we see 198 views of 18 videos. So that means each video has been seen at least 10 times. And that is little. If I show you how the students watch each other's videos, it's amazing, the amount of time that they spend on these videos. So that they get to know themselves. Ryan and Lara actually started using that really interestingly in their teaching by asking students to develop multilingual glossaries. So students had to create these little videos where they explain a concept in design, like repetition or pattern, but in their own language. So she got these multilingual glossaries, yes?
What's it?
Flipgrid.
Flip.
Grid. Flipgrid. I will share my presentation with you, and the links are there, and you can. And again, that's a really easy tool, and you don't have to register, you don't have to log in. You just give your students a code, and they get into your topic, and they just start recording themselves and watch each other. So it's a way to use. You can use it for reflection. Our students hate writing written reflections. I don't know how about your students. It's the worst to get students to reflect. But to reflect like this is very different and a lot less scary and a lot more, I guess, spontaneous and quicker to do. So that was Flipgrid. So we forced our participants to do this little task, and that's not a big task, yeah? But we wanted them to do something every week, all the time, and then also use it in their teaching, apply it in the teaching, and then come back to the next workshop and share their experiences. So they're becoming experts, although they're novices and they're scared, with the support, and we are all in the same boat, and it's all about making mistakes. So in this course, our main thing is also to move away from everything has to be perfect. There's nothing worse than listening to your voice when you do a screencast. I hate my voice. But you have to get used to it. That's just, you have to get over yourself. And the students love it. If you make jokes, if you make mistakes, you become human. If you tell them a little bit about yourself, your form, it's all about the relation that you have, that you build up between you and your students, and the students among each other. So it's a social learning. And technology can be really useful in that. Moving a step further, this is architectural technology, the part-time BTECH program at CPUT. Jolanda Morkel was one of our pioneers in using social media in particular. She was the first one who pushed Facebook as a learning tool. Yeah, while CPUT tried to close down social media on campus, she was one of the few voices who said, no, for I use it as a serious learning tool. I create Facebook groups, we share, we reflect, students create e-portfolios on Facebook. You cannot stop, you cannot cut it down. So from those experiences, she actually decided to create a program for part-time BTECH architectural technology students. So that was one of the biggest problems for architectural technologists in employment to upskill, because they're already working full-time. How can they move away and come to full-time classes? And one of the holy cows in architectural or in design education is the studio space. There was always this idea that the studio has to be done face-to-face. The critique, the feedback you get on your work has to be done when you're in the same room. And Jolanda said, no, let me challenge that. And they designed this part-time BTECH architectural technologies program where the studio is being done through a webinar. The students submit their work beforehand. They show it on a whiteboard. Other students can participate as well and listen in to the crit session, so they learn from their colleagues' work. The lectures are online, and with the stylo and the graphic tablet, make changes on the designs of the students. And the whole thing is being recorded so the student can watch it over and over again. Because one of the biggest things in studios, if you've ever been there, you're so nervous when somebody critiques your work, you can't even listen. You don't even understand what people are saying to you. So they record the crit session, and then the student can just watch it over and over and over again. So her big thing was, how do I create and maintain an online interface that achieves the rich and engaging learning of the traditional architectural technology studio? And that became her PhD, and she really, really did groundbreaking work, I think, in the architecture technology globally, by creating or designing this mix of campus-based. They still come for block release, but a lot of the learning is happening online and at work. So there's that work-based mentoring that becomes a huge part of the course. And then to go fully the online way, this is the National Diploma in Real Estate. They were told, I mean, I don't want to be in their shoes. They offered this real estate diploma over many, many years, block release, campus-based. Then they got accreditation, I think, in November 2016. And from January 2017, this program was offered online, completely via distance. So they had 2 months to prepare for a fully distance learning course. And they made every mistake they could make, I can tell you that. It was a learning curve like this. But we accompanied them, we did research, and from them, the lessons we can draw from that real estate program to then share with others with all these new PG dips are invaluable. Because they had to go through everything. And the interesting part, so Yolanda, who ran that BTECH architecture technology program for many years, was kind of a mentor. So she tried and explained what they are doing. And Sarita, who is the distance learning convener for real estate, tried to follow the kind of technologies they're using, like Facebook. But Sarita's target group is completely different. Those are all middle-aged males on the go, mostly like, you know, whatever, realtors, property evaluators, who are planning for a new career. So they want to retire, and they just need this qualification to become property valuers. So they are not interested in Facebook groups. They're not interested in socializing. All they want is quick access, on the go, and being able to do anything they have to do independently wherever they are. So they had to completely shift how they see learning and how they offer learning to these students. And they are extremely motivated. There's a very low dropout rate compared to the campus-based, because these people know what they want, and they want to finish quickly. But they're also very, very challenging. So if something doesn't work, they'll be there calling you. So it was a learning curve. But what worked for them, so they had to now think way beyond just delivering content. They had to think, how do they support? And I mean, I'm sure UNISA just sits there and laughs, because I mean, for them, that's their daily bread. But for us to think, our IT people go home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Our library, there's nobody during the weekends. These people all work, so they'll study in the evenings and weekends. So how do you provide support beyond the institutional working hours? All of those things you have to think about if you go that route. But again, it worked. After a year, they did really well. A big thing was to have the exams online. So all the assessment is done if they want to. They can come and write it on campus. But I think 75% of all of them decided to actually do it remotely. There's a Responders lockdown browser and a monitor. So you need a webcam, and you install a little software tool that then monitors you. So there's a video, a webcam that checks you, that looks at you, that records you doing the exam. And somebody like Sarita can sit and watch the 100 people doing the exams at the same time. So, and the software actually flags if there's some unusual movement. So if somebody stands up, there will be a red flag. So it's hectic, the stuff you have to think about, but it all works. But you just need to be aware of your need of the kind of challenges that you will face. What became really, really important for them are WhatsApp groups. So they said they relied on that 100%. They created their own, and so what Sarita did at the end is just share a Google Sheet with everybody's phone numbers, where they live, so people could find their own WhatsApp groups. Now then came the Poppy Act and all the drama around sharing private information, so then she had to go through a whole thing of a little survey before, say, do you agree to share information? Then move on, and next step you can see the actual people in the roster. So there are lots of things you have to think about, but it's fun. So that is the online monitoring. So these case studies have shown you how you can start really small in class and eventually move all your teaching online, if you have to. But it all depends, and I think that's really important. You need to know who your learners are and what they can or can't do, and what they will or won't accept. And it's a slow process, it's a scaffolding, and you have to often also explain to students why you're doing certain things the way you do, and what the ultimate benefits for them will be. Ideally, you think about flexibility from the start on, and not just as an add-on. That's something that's, if you can. And it's a collaborative conversation, so don't do it by yourself. Think as a department, with your colleagues. The short course we're offering, we're always inviting design teams to come join us. Because the moment it's 2 or 3 of you in one department, it's so much easier than if you're the only one trying out these things. And for me, what's really important is there's no size fits all. I mean, institutional, you might have some guidelines of what you should do, but for me, it's always about the context, about the lecture, about the students, about the design challenge that you want to address. And the relationship, knowing your learners and what they will or won't accept, is key. So this why and for whom questions, for me, guide everything I do. And this idea that we just have to experiment. It has to be fun. You know, there needs to be a certain mindset that you're trying to do this. Yes, you're making your life easier and your students, but there's also some playfulness in these tools and apps that I think we need to embrace more than what we have been doing. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the two presenters. Please allow me, colleagues, to sit and let's just have